Hello!
Hello.
Welcome to the live stream of consciousness. We so appreciate you all being here today. I'm in the midst of a Righteous Gemstones marathon with my girl. I'm so enjoying that. So I made my name for today as Righteous Gemstony as I could possibly imagine. Bring me off a piece of that piece.
You know what? I don't even know what Righteous Gemstones is, but it sounds wonderful, and I'm
It's
just
great.
glad I can see how happy you are. So
It's the
that's all
new
that matters.
Danny McBride show on HBO, and
Oh,
I
cool.
really like his shows. If you ever saw Eastbound and Down's another one, which was great. I forget the one that he did before that, but highly recommended. Quite humorous and enjoyable. Yeah, man, life is good. What's going on in your neck of the woods?
What's going on in my neck of the woods? Life is continuing to be wonderful. I had a great opportunity. Again, so it's just so weird how my relationship, I have a relationship with you, and I have this like weird relationship with your dad. And I had this opportunity to do some graphics for him, again for one of his shows. And it was just so exciting.
And I want to dedicate this next song to all the valiant men, women, and children fighting for their lives in the Ukraine.
So I did the LED screens in the background right now that look like smoke, and his logo on fire. And you'll see in a minute now it's got the pink fencing.
Is that a statue of Atlas, or is that just on the screen?
A statue of Atlas.
There's a gold statue behind the drummer.
Oh yeah, you know what? That's not on the screen. That's like an archway that the screens go, and people walk out through that archway.
Well, that's
very cool. But it was just so cool to do those graphics and then be able to see it, to just watch a band and then your dad specifically like performing in front of it. It's been such a great opportunity. So, my week was made with just that, but everything is going good elsewise. You guys know at home that I kind of split my employment between Brickett and this studio. Well, I've been coming home so happy from the studio and kind of just feeling in my heart that that's where I should be, that I kind of gave notice to Brickett, and I'm going to be going full time at the studio. So I'm excited as hell about that.
That's amazing, man. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Great.
High five. What about you, buddy?
I am basically up to my neck in a lot of writing, which is cool.
Awesome.
Got a bunch of that going on. I am my buddy, my best friend Aaron, who's like my comic buddy out here in California. He just got a new gig as an editor for a company, and I knew it wasn't long before he asked me if I was down to write some stuff. So I just got like tapped on the shoulder to work with him on some things, which I'm excited about. And I'm a couple issues into this other project that I'm working on. So lots of writing, which is really cool.
Great, man.
Yeah. And what was the thing I was going to share? Something cool. Oh, I remember. At the end, or I should say the first weekend of April, I'm going to be doing my first comic convention since COVID at Northeast Comic Con. I'll have more information in the future. I don't know exactly where it's all located and whatnot, but I'm just printing a bunch of comic books, printing the comic book Blacklight District that we released through Image a few years ago.
Nice.
And doing a limited print run of King of Kings #1, which has never been printed before, which I'm really
excited. I got to get me a copy of that
material together. I think probably some T-shirts and some other stuff. So if you happen to be in that northeastern area and you want to come join me, I will get all the information to everybody for the beginning of April or whatever. But life's good. Can't complain, man. I'm excited that we've got some friends of friends have been.
Oh my God, I'm super excited.
We have some new guests that are being offered up to us, including our guest for today, who we will get to in just a little bit. Anything important and spiritual stirring your soul that we should talk about before we invite on?
No, just this particular podcast has always been like kind of a place of happiness for me, and it's because it's something that we created together and out of intention and serve that purpose. And I told you I started to concentrate on kind of working on some of my own stuff, and I'm excited to be taking the moment, which is my own project, to the next level and start doing that every week. Probably starting next week, because I got an appointment with Tommy Chong out of our last gig with him.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I see that you've been doing some things, and Julie was showing me something, and I went, "Why aren't we promoting that on our show so that everybody knows what's going on?" So, real quick, what can you tell us what you've been doing so that we
Sure, sure.
can
Well, this show has been so inspiring, and just on the most basic level of what it's all about, which is living through intention, just understanding the basic concepts of how life is an energy exchange, a lot of the spiritual basic stuff that we talk about. And I've been enjoying talking to guests so much, and people are telling me you should just do your own show. You know what I mean? Not any offense to you, of course, because they love you too, but just because they like, they like watching me interview people. So I decided to create something, and I called it The Moment, because that's exactly what it is. It's basically going to be a moment of me having a conversation with somebody who I picked to have that conversation with, and intentionally creating that moment and sharing that intention with whoever is watching and co-creating that moment with us. So it's kind of basic, but I'm super pumped because I feel it in my heart, that it's the right thing to do. And I think the studio might even get behind it a little bit. They are excited to see. They love the live stream of consciousness. They love what I'm doing with you. They actually asked me if I wanted to start doing it over at the studio, so I may have a new location over there
you
to
might have
start
a new
doing it out of
location.
the studio. Yeah. So I think, to answer your question about anything spiritual going on, I think it's just a matter of knowing yourself, loving yourself, believing in yourself, um, unconditionally. You know what I mean? Not questioning it. And I know it's so much easier to say than to actually do, because I can remember being at a point where it didn't feel the way it does now.
Mhm.
But once you get there, once you're in the flow, once you kind of understand all of these things, you start to recognize what it should feel like. And to me, that's where I'm at. So much gratitude to you, because the live stream has been a big part of putting me where I'm at today,
Well,
uh,
honestly, Mike,
emotionally
that's
and all
the
of that.
reason why I do it. Why we do
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
because we wanted to. We talked about producing content and doing something consistently. And,
Mhm.
for me, it was just sort of like, we did a month, we did 2 months. All right, cool. We keep doing this
And
thing.
here we are, episode 49,
Yeah. So
and
we keep
and
showing up,
going strong.
doing it's pretty cool.
And you
Uh,
know what? I want to just take a minute, because usually we give shout outs. Leonardo, I appreciate you just hanging out and waiting in the green room.
yeah, we're about to
Um,
bring him on.
but I want to say thank you to Angela and Ninja Kitty and Courtney and Sunshine and all the friends that we've made. I see all your messages here. I'm not going to bring them up right now, but thank you guys so much for being there for us. It means so much to me. I know it means a lot to Jesse, and to the live stream of consciousness in general, which is really just a part of the collective, right? It just can only make us all better, you know. So
Well, yes, I will back you up on that. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here every week as we do this. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our latest guest on the show. Without further ado, we got Leonardo H. Ramil. Please come join us, Leonardo.
hello, Leonardo.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really
You're so
excited.
welcome. Is it okay if we call you Leo?
Yeah, Leo's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful Thursday, one day before Friday, so it's a good moment. And
Yeah,
Michael,
no,
thank you. I'm excited about your next endeavor about the moment and sharing this moment with you all.
Thank
So
you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, so good. Yeah. So you actually came across our path because I guess somebody thought you'd be a good match, and just looking at your website earlier today and kind of seeing what you're all about, there was no doubt. And then, you know, just as we talked pre-show for the last 5 minutes before we went live, you know, finding out where you were coming from and what you were doing was all good. As a matter of fact, hold on one second. I just I wanted to, out of respect for you, I'm changing my vessel because when I took my sip of my water bottle, I was like, "Ooh, I know Leonardo's not going to like that one." So I'm changing my vessel out of respect for you. I know totally where you're coming from, and I can't wait to talk about what you're all about. I'm going to pop up your website here so people know where to take a look and see what you're all about. So Leonardo's website, thelifejourneyguide.com.
Do you want to give us an introduction to what he's all about, or should we?
No, I'm actually going to let him tell us what he's all about. My question was going to be, do we give him our question first, or do we let him tell us what we're all about? We got to give him the question
first.
So welcome to the live stream of consciousness. We talk about all sorts of things here, from the most basic stuff to the most complex stuff. But on the most basic level, we do like to get the personal opinion of our guest as to what is consciousness. So based on, you know, your experience and your perspective, what is consciousness?
Consciousness. Ooh, that is a deep one, but one that everyone will remember at some point. Consciousness, to me, right now in my journey, is one of the oneness with God and with all, and being present to it. And especially now in today's time. But to sum it up, consciousness is a oneness and a with our God and with love.
Awesome. That's exactly what we love to hear. And again, the great thing is everybody's got their own kind of words to describe it. And that was really perfect. I know we intimidated you there for a second. You're like, wow, that's a little bit deep. What was that, Jesse?
I said we need to make a cut together of all our answers for like year one.
I'm working on it. I'm definitely working on that. It's definitely something cool. But yeah, that's great. That's exactly what we talk about, what we feel, what we promote, what our viewers seem to subscribe to, because they all keep coming back as we talk about this stuff. So awesome. So let's get to the next thing, which, in your own words, why don't you tell us what brought you to that? What exactly do you specialize in? Why are you here on this show right now?
You know, my journey's not, of course it's unique, but like everybody else, I believe they're on a journey of discovering who they are and what their purpose is. And I know that it was probably in my 20s where I woke up one day and I wasn't happy. And I got to, you know, falling to my knees and praying to God and asking, like, you know, I'm not happy right now. I'm not understanding why, because on paper it seemed like everything should be just great. And I remember being on my knees and just going over a list of things that I should be happy about. And I've experienced the Spirit speaking in my heart and saying, or asking, like, oh, you thought that made you happy. And they were all these a bunch of different things, very physical, earthly, material things. And I remember thinking, well, what then what does make me happy? And it's been since that experience where the invitation was made to me to question everything that I was going for, or the things that I believed in. And so I stumbled upon a book, A Course in Miracles. And from that, it took me, I remember just reading it, and it's such a difficult, one can perceive it to be a very difficult read.
Yeah,
And
we were talking about this beforehand. Can you tell us just a little bit about the book for those at home who aren't aware of it?
yeah, so A Course in Miracles was actually scripted by a woman named Helen Schuckman in the 60s. And she takes no authorship to it. She takes no authorship to it because it's a 1,200 page book. And when she was writing it, she realized this cannot be coming from me because it goes against everything that she believed in. She was atheistic in nature. She was a professor at a renowned medical school, Columbia Medical School, and she was also Jewish. And here she was writing about the Holy Spirit and writing about Jesus. And so she, when it was done, she sent off the book to a few publishers, and she said, I don't want any authorship from it because I know that I didn't read it, but I know that there's something here that is consistent.
So she was
yeah.
She was, sorry to interrupt, she was recognizing that she was channeling
Yes,
the information. Basically, when you're saying she was saying I didn't write it,
right.
She basically knew that it was coming from somewhere else.
Right. And what's so cool about the book,
recommend the book, by the way, to anybody, but it is a very dense piece of work, as he says. If you're looking for if you're a good reader and you don't mind something that's going to have you sitting there for a little while, it's great. It's got a lot of great stuff. I didn't even finish it, but the things that I learned from just like, I think a little more than half of the book that I made it through before my fire and I lost my copy. It's a wonderful book.
Yeah. And if, for me, when I picked it up, I knew that there was something there. And there's a curriculum in which you can read it for 1 year, but getting through a 1,200 page book you'd have to be really dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And I happen to be in a position to where I could really read a certain paragraph or segment over and over again until I, quote, got it. But the book is experiential, meaning it is something to not so much analyze the words, but be present to yourself and the truth within you and your connection and conversation with God, to where you will experience exactly what the book is
meant for you to experience.
Yeah. And so it was probably like 3.5 years of reading the book 3.5 times. Did I at one moment just go, oh my goodness, I get it. I get everything that I'm reading. And what it was for me was that I began to read it from the context of love. I began to read it from only knowing the consistency of God and all his gifts to us. And when I read it and when I proceed with life from that context, then all is good. And one of the things that I'm very clear about is that we are absolutely one thought away from having everything that we've ever wanted. One thought away from having the very thing or things that we've been looking for. And we're not taught that in this world. We are taught contrary to that. We're taught that we don't have anything, that we have to achieve, attain, and acquire things.
Right.
And
well, that's why what you said when you realized everything that you thought made you happy wasn't what made you happy, but that's what you had been taught was supposed to be making you happy.
My mother had said something very similar to what you're saying, or it'd been passed on through Mother Ayahuasca when she was working with ayahuasca. She had this deep cry for the world and everybody. There's so much suffering. And Mother Ayahuasca said to my mother, she said, it's okay. All they have to do is turn around. And it was this really deep realization that everything, and I mean, and this is kind of the thing that you see over and over again in the Course in Miracles. It's like that it's all sort of the framework and the perspective, and all of a sudden this little shift happens and it's like, oh, wait a second, this isn't a nightmare. This is exactly what I needed. This is exactly where I need to be. There's so many times where I think things fall apart and you want to be like case in point, the other day, I lost a rewrite I did of a script that I'm working on right now. It was really aggravating I stayed up until like 4 in the morning finishing this thing, and then I woke up and I'm like just reading it through, just like to dot all my I's, cross my T's, make sure it's perfect. And then all of a sudden I get this warning message that it's gone. I've lost all of the progress from yesterday, and a piece of me just wanted to go like, oh my, like that stuff's happened so many times before. But now I try to, and really inspired by books like A Course in Miracles, like to go, okay, well, why did this happen like this? It seems so terrible. What's the lesson? What's the good thing? And I realized pretty quickly that I had kind of maybe rewritten a lot of stuff that was really good, and I didn't need to work so hard to rewrite my book. And I did a much lighter rewrite the next day. But that's that thing of just sometimes you just turn around, and even if it's not like this is the thing when you talk about, let's say, all this spiritual nonsense that we believe is bullshit. Okay. If you just decide that you have the power to flip your perspective on a thing, and at any moment be able to look at the thing from the vantage point where you feel peace and strength because of what was done, that's just a blessing to be able to do that. It always is. So, no matter what you believe, it's just always such a huge tool in your tool chest to be able to do that, to just flip that frown upside down and figure out a way to look at it as something worthwhile. And there always is.
Absolutely.
So Leonard, Leo, can we, I'm trying to like shorten Leonardo, and I'm like, Leonard, no, that's not a shortening of, but can we get, where were you at prior to this moment, and what happened when you finally woke up that day and you were like, oh, I get it. What did you decide to do? How did you decide to live from that moment forward? And just to reiterate, where were you success wise? Like, what was it that you were doing that seemed like it was so good, but you weren't happy?
Yeah. So I am an entrepreneur in nature. I went to USC Business School. I was running a $40 million Japanese development company. I was traveling around the world. I got great family, great friends, doing basically what I wanted to. And the year previous to my, I don't want to, somewhat like the depression, was that I had a sister that had passed away of leukemia, which brought about so many questions in regards to life and love and God. And so that was where I was. And I was just trying to reconcile, wow, I've got everything going on in my mind, right? And so I just remember feeling a sense of emptiness. And so when I was on my knees, as I had shared with you, and the invitation was there to actually begin to question what I was putting my faith in, it was then that the Holy Spirit really invited me to see life and from a totally different perspective, to see it from God's eyes, and see it from only love. Because one of the things that I really advocate and teach is that there really is only love, that there's only that context. Like, for example, what I love, like in teaching my class, I'll go around early on and ask people, hey, do you believe that love is the greatest power in the universe? And at the very least I hear like, well, I hope so. That's why I'm here. But there's some people where they were sounding like yes, and there's other people like, yeah, but on the most part, the people in the class are saying, yeah, I believe that, love's the greatest power in the universe, or at least I hope that. Then I come back with them, I say, isn't it interesting that in the midst of hoping that, we do everything but love? We make every excuse but love. So if we actually believe that love is the greatest power in the universe, then we're also saying that love must be our highest sense of beingness. Why do we make any excuse not to love?
Right.
It could be like, oh, I can't love because that person's being a witch, or being really difficult. And yeah, so it's really, for me, I always tell people there's nothing to learn and there's nothing to do, but there is everything to remember.
Hmm.
And remembering is different from learning
Hmm.
and doing something, because remembering means that you've always had it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, I love sharing that. So in the
Yeah.
midst of, so what you asked, like what happened, and what happened for me was that the journey began, the life journey guide.
So how did things change from that
Right.
moment as you were like, all right, things are going good, but maybe I don't feel like I'm going to the destination I want to go to. How did you change that arrangement?
Yeah. So for me, I really just began questioning, like, wow, I think that's something that I said that I really like. Why do I think I like that?
Hmm.
What am I choosing from an autopilot, perspective, context, or am I actually choosing from something I get to remember, which is love?
Hmm.
Because
You
I
know,
believe that,
sorry,
pardon,
forgive.
I
No,
believe
you
that we actually run our life from either the standpoint of love or from fear.
Hmm.
And
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that when you guys talk about consciousness, I think that one of the things for me in in my journey is realizing, when I was invited to start questioning things, I began to see things from, like, I think it was Jung. He was a philosopher that said that there's that balcony stance where you, from the balcony of your mind, you can see yourself either acting in love or acting in fear. And I love being able to see that um, now more than ever.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think, it's especially in this time right now, the choices of love and fear is becoming more and more evident to people. And I think fortunately that's why we have these conversations. That's why I love having these conversations, because it assures me that there are people out there who understand that, that the love is where we need to be. And it's hard these days because
Yeah.
we have so many layers, that, like you said, that make us believe that what we want are these material things, and we've been kind of conditioned this certain way away from love, and conditioned into fear, with the media and all of these things that are going on, and so
Yeah,
that's
I
why
was
we
gonna
love having
say
people like you.
love is really kind of tempered by fear in this reality.
Mhm.
Where we start out, um, you know, like if you're a parent, a wise older parent would say, "Don't crush their spirit." And
Yeah.
what that means is don't temper their love with so much fear that they're
Mhm.
not led by their love anymore.
Mhm.
Because as kid, like, and I think I'm somebody who's very guilty of that, like sort of like having my love corrupted. Like I'm
Mhm.
really passionate and enthusiastic. I'm a big kid. I love toys. I love art. I love all the pretty things. I like people, and I believe that we can all be friends and we can have fun. And
Yeah.
when you go out into the world with that sort of attitude, even if you're a real strong idealist like I am, slowly but surely over time, you start to kind of get a little nervous about how some of these things are going to roll out. And then you may still be living from a place of love, but it gets tempered by a lot of fear. And for me, it was really a major thing when I realized how I had like sort of shifted my perspective and twisted it around, and all of a sudden I had been looking at this thing from this perspective and I loved it, and then I just kind of turned it to the back and I'm like, oh, I don't like that anymore. It's really easy, I think, for us to get kind of lost in that fear thing, but I do think that everybody, even like selfish people, who are murdering or what, that doesn't
Wow.
matter if you're lying and cheating, you're probably doing it because of love, because something
Yeah.
seems like important to you, whether it's money or success, and you love those things, and you sort of fearfully began to act on the thing that you wanted or desired or you liked, or loved, and and you just kind of fall off that pattern. So I think that's really easy for everybody to identify with.
Yeah. And I think that our our fear is completely tied into the physical, which is time, money, and circumstance. Like one thing I promise is to my class, I said, I promise you that all the things that you're concerned about is time, money, and circumstance, which is also very physical. So the invitation is to actually explore a part of you that you have forgotten about. And that's the truth and the spirit within. And
what does that all boil down to? Really, time. If it's time, money, and circumstance, and we know that the money's coming in so that we can spend it, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a moment where the money's not there. There's always moments where the money's there. There's always moments where the circumstances are the money has come. But ultimately, it all comes about time of like, oh, well, when am I going to get to the time when my circumstance is different and the money is different and I can do the things that I want and I'm in that place. But if we were all living at the Super Bowl, 24/7, then there would be no Super Bowl. It wouldn't matter. Like time is also giving us the perspective on earning and enjoying and having all these things. So I mean, like finding a balance within that is very important.
Right.
Or actually you seek that which is opposite of time, money, and circumstance. I say that if time, money, and circumstance is the things that stress us out, maybe there's something else to being other than that. So what's the opposite of time? Would be timelessness. And for me in this earthly world, timelessness for me happens when I'm present to right now. Now is the only time that is pretty infinite in this physical realm. And in regards to currency, we know that there's the mighty dollar, or now cryptocurrency, right? But I say maybe we make our currency love, right?
I say that too.
Yeah. So, So for me, there's that taking a look at the things that I think that I'm worried about and being like, you know what, I put my trust in something and I know that there's something other than that. Like, for example, I always tell my class, I ask them all the time, like, who are you without a body?
It's so interesting that you just said that, because in my mind, I'm thinking about how am I going to introduce this concept that everything you're talking about is basically related to 3D, existing in 3D, existing as a three-dimensional entity, right? And what you're talking about that's outside of that is what we achieve through meditation, through dreams, through crossing over to those other realms. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's exactly what
well, I mean, and it's also in the 3D of just sort of appreciating where you are, moment, all that.
Yeah.
So you were saying,
Jesse, you were saying, you cut out real quick. You said the 3D.
Oh, I just said, living in the moment, and being in that now. I mean, like another great book for me was The Power of Now, which, I keep threatening to reread. But that idea, I keep having this, I just saw a video the other day of a iceberg flipping over. And I just thought it was such a brilliant visual guide to the idea of, changing your perspective, changing your mind about everything and about how everything is going, that it's that easy to just sort of like capsize this bit and look at the other side of that iceberg and be like, oh no, it's nice now. And we've talked about on the show before about the glass being half full and it's half empty simultaneously. It's both things. We need a new way to describe that glass that is not taking a perspective either way. The glass is, and there's water, and let's appreciate the water as opposed to arguing about whether or not it's too much or too little.
But I equate that to proceeding with life in every regard, in every instant, in every invitation, like trusting love. Like, do I trust love enough to do this? And you ask that question throughout the day, and you'd be surprised how I don't, or we don't do that. I'll give you an example. I was at Starbucks a while back, and I was in a long line, ordered, and then I had to go to the bathroom. And I was with a friend of mine. And I went up to the barista and I asked him, I said, hey, do you have the code for the bathroom? And he was like, 424. And I was like, did you say 24? He was like, dude, 2424. I was like, oh, thanks. So I'm turn around, I'm going towards the bathroom. my friend looks at me and he's like, what the are you talking about? Like, did you see what that guy did? I'm like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. So I get to the bathroom and it's locked. And so I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And as I'm waiting, there's another 6 people that are waiting with me. So we're going on like probably like 15 minutes, right? If the girl behind me at some point goes up and pushes the code in and tries and opens the door. You know, it was locked. So I'm standing there, and finally, after what I would consider a pretty long wait, someone walks out. And as this person was walking out, she said, excuse me, she said, did you know that if someone's in here that you don't have to punch in the code? And I said, yeah, thank you. And then so I was walking in, she grabbed my arm and she said, did you hear what I said? I said, yeah, you said if someone's in here and it says locked, that someone doesn't have to punch in the code. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, thanks. So I walk in, I walk out. My friend had witnessed all of this, right? And my friend is like, I need to understand what the hell just happened. I go, what do you mean? And he just said, the barista, we just spent, 10 minutes in line ordering a drink, we're paying for his salary. And he goes, and you didn't even say anything about how he gave you the numbers to the bathroom. I said, that guy was just trying to negotiate his worth. I said, I know his worth and I know my worth. So there really isn't a conversation here. I just need to love him and bless him. And he was like, okay, and he goes, and then what happened in the bathroom? Like, I saw that the girl behind you is the one who punched the numbers and the other girl like accused you and you didn't say a thing. And I said, oh, that girl was negotiating her worth too. In fact, she took it even maybe a step further. It was negotiating that I could ruin her whatever experience in that bathroom. And I said, and like, I couldn't. I said, I know who she is. She might have forgotten, but I know who she is and I know who I am. Right. So the only conversation that I want to have is like, hey, I love you.
Right.
Yeah. I love that, and I really appreciate
that's a great story. Yeah,
you're framing this, and if you could just explain it a little bit better, just for us all to lock in that idea of negotiating one's worth. Can you explain that concept to me, Michael, and the audience?
I think our illusions of love are played out in one of 2 ways. I think we either do it through deflection of like someone's guilty and I'm made innocent, so there's my worth. I think that's one way that we go perceive life. And the other way is that we actually think that something completes us, right? Some person, place, or thing can complete us. But I say that neither of those things are true, and they're not love. They are concepts that we've learned from this world, and that the only true love is that which God has given us, and that can never be denied, and it's always part of you. Mm-hmm. So did I answer your question, Jesse?
You basically did. It made me think. So I've been watching this show. I'm really enjoying The Righteous Gemstones. It's actually really a great spiritual show, because it's about this family of preachers who have been preaching for an age. They're very, very well off. There's a fundamental sort of, problem within what it is that they do. They're passing on all this spiritual message, but they're profiting crazy from it. And then at the same time, they're just regular people who are getting caught up in all these things. And there's been a lot of takeaways that I've had from it. But one of the main takeaways was looking at children. And, I've got 4 children myself. And there was sort of a conversation taking place where one of the parents was going after one of the kids because of something they did. And the other kid went after the sibling in the exact same way that they were being pressed. And I don't know why it happened to hit me like this, but I realized there was like so much power in not playing the game that the other person was playing. that another person could come along and they could say, oh, he did this and he touched my and then to be a child is to go, no, I didn't. It was and to be beyond the circumstance was simply to be quiet and to let the person sort of while out and have their moment of, sort of proving their worth and their worthy fighting, like a lion for what it is that they're worthy of and the respect that they should have had or whatever it is. And the most respectable thing and the wisest thing that you could do would be to just not enter into that game because it becomes like a tennis match. Today my daughter called me because my son punched her in the boob, and then she hit him in the testicles. And I was making a whole bunch of jokes.
This show's getting a little racy now, huh?
But again, it was this dichotomy of don't get involved in this little petty game your brother wants to play. You can choose to just not subscribe to it at all and sit there and be quiet. Now you've taken it another step. You have people actively, kind of going at you, not with like a parent present or anything, but just this fight. And you're like, oh, you want to have a fight? There's no need to have a fight. It's okay. Yes, I hear you. I see you. You have value and you have power. It's all right. And just it's really difficult, I think, for a lot of people to do that. We would call that the
drop the ego
chip on the shoulder, right? Like, oh, well, this guy came at me and he told me a bunch of things that I didn't appreciate, and I had to go fight back because I feel like that's not true. But if you feel at peace and you feel good about it, then this person bringing all this nonsense to you isn't going to wreck you, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the lessons in the course, I don't know what number it is, but it says to defend is self-attack. To actually to defend is self-attack, and the reason why that is true is because you only defend that which you believe is compromised or can be affected. So when you live from the context that you are whole and that can never change, it's immutable, then there's nothing.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that.
There's nothing to defend, which means there's also nothing for me. Someone the other day said, "Can you forgive me?" And I was like, "Well, I don't need to forgive you because I never condemned." I can go through my mind and think, what the physical effects can be based on some physical actions. But the truth is, regardless of those neutral events, I stand whole and complete.
Right.
Because
that's great.
Yeah. Because you can't, I'm very clear that there's nothing to get in this physical world.
Taking this back for everybody at home to our universal laws thing, right? If we're all one being, if we're all just coming from the same energy source, but with different perspectives, it's assumed within that essentially anybody who you run into is behaving as you would behave in different circumstances. Okay. That you've not been perfect your whole life, that sometimes you get upset or angry or weak or whatever, right? So when you're having somebody else come at you, you're supposed to be going, all right, I've been in that place. I've been at work and run down and tired and feeling like I'm not getting respect. And go, okay, I'm just going to make this
respond with love. Yeah.
This is it's about you, and I love you no matter what sort of day you're having. And you give them back what you would wish that somebody would give you, giving you the benefit of the doubt, even when it's the I'm sorry that you feel this way, sir, and on with the show. And it's beautiful. I love that story.
Yeah.
So what? Sorry, you what do you have to say, Leo?
No, I was going to say that I'm a true believer that what we give is actually what we receive. Thus, meaning the extent of seeing our wholeness of our brothers and our sisters and the people around us is only to the extent of us knowing it within ourselves. I mean, that's like, that has shown true in my practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was the biggest change you made as you came to others? I mean, obviously, like, a lot of your life has changed dramatically. I think what you're doing then, you were doing then versus what you're doing now. But what was the biggest adjustment that you made that was like, you know what, I have to do X, Y, or Z so that I can be true to my inner self?
the biggest change is realizing that I've always had it within me and that everybody else has.
Mm-hmm.
And it is as simple as that. And realizing that we really are one thought away from having everything you've ever been looking for. Because yeah, there are people like, you just turn on the television, right? You surf the web, you flip through the pages of a magazine, and we're just reminded that you're just not physically good enough. And so, but guy, when you realize that what you have is perfect and whole, and that you can remember that, then you don't have to. For example, people say like, "Oh, for me to have peace, then I need to get to Hawaii, and I need to buy that $800 ticket. I need to check into a Waikiki hotel. I need to see the sunset, and see a dolphin breach. Like everything has to line up, and for them to be happy. And Lord knows that could take like a few months. Right. We're not taught. We're not taught that we actually can call upon peace and love and joy and happiness right now.
Right.
I remember there was a moment.
We have a lot of now, not tomorrow or yesterday.
Right.
Yeah. I remember there was a moment where I wanted to change my name. And I remember going to.
You just did it. Break me off a piece of that practice.
Yeah. Yeah. But I remember going to my parents, and both of them separately said the same thing to me, which was, well, if you don't like your name and this is how you feel about your name, then change it. You whatever you believe is true is going to be the truth you're living. So if you're in a situation and you feel like, I don't like my name, I'm embarrassed of it, like I used to be very straight edge, and my middle name is Blaze, and people used to think that was a nickname I gave myself. And it had a lot of connotations to marijuana, and at the time that was very like taboo for me, and I hated when people would bring that up, and they thought that it was something that I imagined. It drove me crazy. I would always like feel the need to be like, that's my legal name, like, because I felt embarrassed that I would name myself this like nickname for stoners, which I had no concept of at the time. It was very like, I was very anti that, but I remember, them saying this to me, that like, I don't know what I was expecting their reaction to be. Like it was going to be resistance or whatever, but in them kind of being at peace with it, being like, yeah, well, if you feel that way, you should change it, made me change my mind about my name. Because I was like, well, they're right. And wait a second, it's a lot more work to change my name than it is to change the way I feel about my name. And I literally started at that point, like doing a whole bunch of inner work to just change my own perspective on just that one thing, on just my name. Wow. And have my name not. I remember like my uncle called me Messy Jesse when I was like a little kid. And for some reason that tainted like how I thought of the name at so many levels. I thought it was like a descriptive term. He's so Jesse. Like I had all these weird hangups about it. And then all of a sudden I had to change it. And I remember I wrote some songs and some things like to try to just readjust my mind of what I thought those things mean. But it very much proved to me exactly what you learned in an instance, all encompassingly, that it's how you feel about everything is how it's going to look to you, and if until you change the way you're looking at the thing, you're never going to feel any different about it. Right. And it really can be that simple. I changed the way I felt about my name, and generally I've never really had the insecurity about my name ever since. But for a long time it was just there, but it was how I was thinking about it, how I was looking at it.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about earlier too, and that's what we talk about, is that energy exchange. You said, what you give is what you get, is what you're eventually going to get. And, just in a basic conversation, that energy exchange of, how your tone is, how you're presenting yourself to that person is what you're going to get back, because that's how they're going to respond. And we talk about that stuff all the time. I don't want to change the subject, but I do want to ask you a question, because earlier before the show, we were talking to you and you said, you teach this course, but you teach it out of another business that you run. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that. And that was why I honored you with my glass receptacle instead of my plastic water bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we get to go to a class? I know you're in Huntington Beach, right?
Yeah, Huntington Beach. I teach out of Flow Water Yoga Life. We own an alkaline water store, and behind it is a yoga studio. And so we've combined, um, those modalities, people's practice of yoga, and invite them into the discovery of some great water. One of the things that I am a big proponent on is intermittent fasting, and then to take it up a step is doing a 3-day water fast, which has great science behind it. I think what happens is a thing called autophagy, which is cellular regeneration that happens after 48 hours. After 48 hours of being on a water fast, you go into ketosis, and then your body begins to get rid of marginal cells and create some kick-ass cells that is just really boosts your immune system. So I'm a big believer in that. It's, I'm older now. I'm now 20 something, I wish. But in that, it's just really helped me in regards to just being more alert and being more physically active. And
how often do you fast in the year? I'm a big supporter of fasting.
I will do it 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And I will be strictly water, flow water, but strictly water for 3 to 5 days. And
where, or I should say, what motivated you to choose water? Like, is it that you see this is such a stupid question to anybody who knows anything, but to illuminate us as much as you can of why, this path, and what about the water, and what's the important thing to know about water for your health?
Well, we're made up for 70% of our physical body is water. And for me, I had mentioned that I had a sister that passed away when I was 26. Mm-hmm. And when she was going through her experience of leukemia and she passed away, I remember researching, because the doctors, she went through many rounds of chemotherapy and radiation. And I remember thinking, I don't want to do that. And so when she was in the hospital, I remember starting for the first time reading about living organically and eating organically. And so I presented that to her, and I said, hey, when you go into remission, I found these places that we can maybe do a cleanse and see if maybe there's an approach to, your cancer. And she said, no, I've made my decision. I'm going to do the bone marrow transplant in the midst of it only being a 3% success rate. And I never mentioned it again. But in that, I remember
you didn't yell at the lady who grabbed your arm when you were going into the bathroom. Of course you never brought it up again. I know. You're like the sweetest man ever, Leo.
If I could just mention real quick, my sister, I remember she telling me, if I forgive, I know, from what I understand, I believe that, I can get over, I can have, that I'll live. And I realize now that the forgiveness that was placed in her mind to share with me was something greater than a physical, forgiveness or life. And that, so it really just, was the launching pad for me to explore health and consciousness and my relationship with God, and even understand death a little bit more. Because she always told me, like, hey, no matter what happens, I'm going to be fine, and this is just a journey with God. And I know that I'm very clear that she did not want to die, but she did. And 2 years ago, I recently had a niece that passed away as well. And just having that experience that we are in a body, and that they really were that bridge for me to this knowing. So, but back onto like why I started doing all this health stuff was, my sister's experience, and which really just led to me owning some vitamin stores. And then I sold those, and I woke up one day and I said, you know what, I'm going to open up an alkaline water store. And our water store is unique in that not only do we put it through a process that the state says nobody else does, a double pass reverse osmosis, so our water is just tremendously clean. But we also
speak my water.
Yeah, you need to come in and have some water.
I'm close enough.
But we also put it through, we restructure it under the theory of Dr. Emoto from Japan, who won a Nobel Prize, showing that you handle water a certain way, you can remove the negative imprinting. So we do that, and then we also pass it through a mineral media where we've chosen 7 specific minerals for taste, wellness, health, anti-aging. And so those minerals are really, really cool to have when you go through intermittent fasting or just a three-day water fast.
Leo speaks my language, and I live close to his place.
Nice. You could go actually visit him. I didn't find a website for you, Leo. I did find.
What's the name of your place? It's Flow.
Yeah, it's Flow. Thank you for Flow Water Yoga Life. Both my websites are, under construction, but yeah, we're in Huntington Beach. Please come on down. You can look us up on Yelp, and I think we've got some great reviews.
I think what's interesting is, and I'm going to share your website as well. What's interesting is if people aren't familiar with the whole concept of alkaline water, we have a place called Fountain out here on the East Coast, and I went to just kind of get the demo. They give you a demo and they explain to you all of the benefits and all of the things that they show you actually how most of the water that's even presented to you or available to you is acidic, and what it means to you. So I would definitely recommend, just even researching that, going down to a local place that is alkaline water based and just researching it and understanding, what it's all about. You make your decision then, but I definitely, saw the benefits of that. And I do try to actually not drink bottled plastic water as often as I can. I do have my own filter here. It's not an alkaline filter, but, I filter my own water, and, I certainly have seen the benefits of that in my own health. But
and they say that cancer and so many different things cannot live in an alkaline environment. When we go out and we have a bunch of deep fried burgers and French fries or whatever, sometimes the next day or later that night you got acid indigestion where you literally can taste all this acid in your body. So talking about alkaline water, you're talking about trying to suppress the portion of our diet that can be very acidic. Is there other things associated with alkaline water that you became aware were really good for people's health besides something like as simple as cancer?
Well, yeah, you stated it. To have your body in an alkaline state, they say it just really doesn't allow for disease to be within your body. So when the pandemic happened, actually, we had people really discovered who we are and the benefits of our water. And we have some really bold claims where people say, like, we swear that this has really warded off COVID for us. And I know within my own family that we swear by our water. It's great. It really is just amazing, what I consider miraculous stuff.
The processes that you're talking about, I mean, on the money based on everything I know. So I'm going to be visiting. Michael, what can we get out of Leo before we let him go here? What are our final questions?
I really enjoyed our conversation, Leo. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you guys do the, I know when I went down to Fountain and did the whole thing, they did the foot bath, which removed the toxins through my feet. I forget what the element was that was in the water that was drawing out the toxins. I don't know if you guys do that stuff or if maybe that's a few years old at this point.
It's funny you mentioned that because we are working on like a 3-day water retreat in which we will probably incorporate that process, but we do not have it right now. What we do have, as I mentioned, we have a yoga studio in the back of the store with different it has radiant heat, so it's hot yoga and or warm yoga depending on the teacher. But and we have sound baths every once in a while for to sign up.
I love that.
And of course, my classes on Tuesday. So
and that was the thing I wanted to ask you about, your classes every Tuesday. And what is the class specifically about?
Well, we pick a topic and it come from anybody, one of the students or something that I've chosen, but it's just life experiences. I mean, everybody's got something going on more than ever, right? More than ever, people just think, God, what am I going to wake up to? What stress am I going to have to be challenged with? And it really is just life application, and it's applying and taking on love to a different level for each and every one of us.
Awesome. Awesome. Speaking of
Yes.
love, Steve Sage, love you guys. We love you back,
too,
Steve. That's awesome. Yeah, you know what? Why don't you stick around after we sign off, and we'll talk, because I don't know if you've got someone working on your websites, but that's something that I do, and I would love to help you out if you need help.
Yeah, we'll let you go for a
Okay.
second, Leonard, but hang out for 2 seconds while we say
Yeah,
bye
hang
to
on.
the audience, and we'll get you back on.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Yeah,
So
hang on.
Thank you,
Hang
guys.
backstage.
Thank you so much for joining us. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that
amazing.
was awesome.
Yes, Leonardo. I love that story. And then she
Great.
grabbed my arm, and in my face she said, "You know what I said to you? Did you hear what I was saying?" And he still held it together. It's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. It really is, like, it just sort of just demonstrates the way you can live. And there's just so
Totally.
many instances where I think that you would normally hear something like that and you would go, and then you told them off, right? Or then you were rude to them. Or then, like, to just hear, and then I was nice and I gave them some more love. That's the best.
Yeah, we need more people like Leo, definitely. I mean, and that's what we preach around here. And thank Julie for whoever it was that networked Leo to our presence and to our show.
Yes. So we've got some more coming, and I actually have 2 good friends of mine out here that I realized the other day I need to have on the show. So
Awesome.
we've got some awesome guests coming up in the immediate future. We love you all. Thank you for joining us again on another fabulous live stream of consciousness. And pay attention to Michael Zinn's page so that he can show you when his new show is coming.
Monday, Tommy Chong.
Yeah, Monday, Tommy Chong. What time?
It's going to be 6:00 Eastern time.
Monday, 6:00 Eastern time, and you can watch Michael on his show with Tommy Chong. What's it called again?
It's called The Moment.
The Moment. That's right. I didn't want to get it wrong. All right. Anyway, we love you guys. We'll see you next time on another fabulous edition of the live stream of consciousness.
Peace.
Bye.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world it didn't exist.
Are you there?